Welcome back to Wizard Supercoach. Hope you're enjoying the long weekend. Streak's now up to 8 daily videos in a row, so pretty stoked with that. Only 33 subs left now to get to the 200 by round zero goal that I set. So for you guys that have already subbed, thanks for your support and encouragement to keep making these videos, because they are time consuming, but yeah, they're also enjoyable. So, I'm a huge nerd. Just quickly before I get into the video, I was going to say, if anyone can't be bothered doing it themselves, I'll take requests. If you want a player or certain players covered in these kind of videos that aren't, just let me know in the comments and I'll let you know what info comes out for that. So this video is going to talk about Rucks, and it's going to cover three different tables. The reason why I'm doing three at once is because there's only a handful of relevant Rucks. So it's not really worth doing one video, I think, for one table. And then I'll bring up all three together at the end and just have a quick talk through them and have a look at the three as a complete snapshot, I think. So as usual, these tables don't include sub-affected or finals games. I mean, if they are subbed off right at the end of the game or whatever, that's fine. But yeah, the usual. So this first one, what it is, we have the players' average CBAs and what they score on average when they go above that percentage of CBAs and what they score when they go below it. So similar to the midfielders, but yeah, we're doing it with the Rucks now. So starting at the top, we have Wits, who, well, when he gets lower CBAs, he seems to do better. So 15.5 points on average. Now, this is a little bit skewed by the fact that he scored a 62 against McInerney early in the year. He had 90% CBAs in that game, so that brings his plus average down a little bit. McInerney's a bit of an animal, actually. He seems really hard to score on. Kind of gave me the idea that I may do a video at some point with who are the hardest Rucks to score on. So we know, if you look at DFS, it tells you which teams are hard to score on, but I guess could actually narrow it down a little bit more and see who are the most restrictive Rucks, unless it's already available out there somewhere, but I'm not sure it is. So Wits is 84% on average. That's on the higher end of these CBAs. If you have a look at most of the Rucks here, the majority are below that. So my guess is that he is probably getting gassed out when he's going with these really high CBA games, because he's pretty old now. I wouldn't say he's terribly relevant either. I've included the top Rucks here, and then a couple that are relevant that are outside of the top ones, but given that we usually only play with two Rucks, yeah, that's why there's not many. Cameron in second spot here, not far behind Wits. So this is slightly misleading, I think, because his three biggest scores, they came from games where he had just below the 75% average that he normally has. So, that 75 as well is on the lower end of CBA percentage here for these Rucks. If you have a look, it's only Darcy has less, and he's got Jackson to deal with, so that explains that. So I think he's now proven that he can score well with Cox in the team, as long as Cox isn't taking a heap of CBAs, as he did probably for the first 5 or so games, I think, in 2024. But he does do a lot around the ground. Like, he doesn't necessarily need these CBAs. He hits the scoreboard. I think he goes at an average of about half a goal a game. He takes marks, things like that. He's not one of your pure tap ruckman. He's quite mobile. So Cox is his only real risk, but I don't even think he's best 22 anymore. Yeah, I think Collingwood have passed that. So I expect Cameron to do really well this year. Tim English, now he's not a normal ruck either, and even more so, he's probably the most, just plays like an extra midfielder pretty much. He gets all these points around the ground, and his disposal efficiency is what sets him apart. It's way clear of all the other rucks. He averages 74% there, so yeah, he needs to be getting the ball around the ground, obviously, to score. So I think, judging by this, he should be okay. Like, what this table does is it gives us a bit of an idea of which rucks can accommodate a little bit of a drop in CBA. So maybe not like a full-time second ruck, not like a Pitney or something like that, But, you know, like in English's case, a Darcy who might take a few more CBAs, but it's not going to be a whole heap because he's mainly a forward. So he should be fine with Darcy doing a few more CBAs, as we expect might happen. But it's English's fitness and ability to get to those contests around the ground that I think will make or break his scoring. So I'll probably talk more on that later. Briggs, he's got no real second ruck threat anyway. I don't think he's hugely relevant either. He's got comparatively low time on ground, average of 74%, which probably suggests that he's not the fittest player going around. So kind of like Witts, he probably gets gassed with the higher CBA percentage and scores better with less. Cherry is an absolutely consistent beast, regardless of really what goes on by the look of all these. There's no second ruck threat for him, so yeah, I expect him to just carry on as he was. And again, like as I usually say, these middle players here, they're not hugely statistically relevant. Like they're so close to breaking even, it doesn't really matter. So Sean Darcy, no real difference, not much to say here. His split with Jackson when they're both fit, it seems pretty set anyway, so I don't expect much of a change there. Gawn doesn't have any second ruck threat currently, so I wouldn't expect his CBAs to really drop. But he does need them, looking at this. He gets a lot of hit outs to advantage, so you know you can't really be doing that if you're not in the ruck. He is a good forward though, so as you're going to see with all of these tables with Gawn, he can drop a fair amount of average points here. Like he's dropped basically 10, and he's still putting out massive scores, like an average of 117.7. That's bigger than most of these rucks averages, like total averages. So yeah, he's just kind of in a league of his own, I guess, him and Cherry. Marshall, if you haven't heard yet, it sounds like he's probably going to play forward. Saints don't really have key forwards apart from King. Like there's Caminiti and who's the other one? Maybe Owens, but yeah, they're not real strong in the key forward department. So it looks like Boyd could be the first ruck. If that's the case, then Marshall is effectively ruled out as a pick until if he got DPP come round 6 or something like that, then he'd be worth a look. But it depends how he's scoring up forward and what the split is between him and Boyd. So yeah, not really in contention right now until we know what's going to go on there. Meek, this proves he can't be picked if Reeves plays because he just can't, he can't take any hit to his CBAs here. It's not good. He's got the second highest hit out to advantage average out of all these rucks here, so he definitely needs CBAs for that to happen. Or, he needs to be in the ruck for that to happen, I should say. So that's how he gets his scores. Yeah, if Reeves comes in, then Meek is dead as a pick. I think Nankervis, he'll be the main man. I can't see Samson Ryan having too much of an impact on him. There's other question marks with Nank, but yeah, still worth a look, I think. So I've got Flynn 2023 score here because he didn't play at all in 24. The big question with him is whether he's going to be fit and is he going to play solo or with BJ Williams. So if he's playing with BJ, this might be all right. Like his price, a 78, actually, it'd be enough to make us the money we need, but you'd hope it would be higher. I don't see why they'd play BJ Williams, if I'm honest. Like, unless BJ can play anywhere else and pinch hit in the ruck. If I'm West Coast, I'm not playing 2 set rucks like that. So, I don't know, wait and see on Flynn. Still not sold. There's a few big questions still around him. Grundy clearly cannot play outside the ruck. We saw it at Melbourne. This is a pretty horrendous drop here. There is no threat to him, though. I think, like, McLean is usually the second ruck, and he plays mostly forward. I can't see that changing, but Grundy, I think, is past his prime and not really a pick anymore. So it's a bit of a worry to see Tom De Koning at the bottom here. Clearly, he's only pickable without Pitney or Pitnet, however you say it. So he's shown that he cannot score if he's outside the ruck. Now, there's a few problems here. If Mackay or Curnow go down injured, and both of them do love a good injury, he's usually the man to go forward, and then Pitney comes into the team, takes the majority of the ruck. TDK plays forward. So, yeah, that's not good. And I think there's a lot of red flags here for TDK. Like, there's a lot of upside, but it's just very risky. I think with these other rucks on offer, there's much safer options. Yeah, it basically just comes down to whether Pitnet is in the team or not, and if Mackay and Curnow can stay injury-free. So that's it for the first table. I should say as well, this has actually given me an idea to do a video on which mids, and then I'll probably do one on rucks as well. What their CBA percentages look like on average in losses and wins. So especially for the mids, we want to see if things aren't going to plan, which mids are going to get thrown forward to try and create some goals and stuff, or who is more likely to get thrown in the middle to try and generate some ball, you know? So basically it would just come down to CBA percentage of wins versus losses. So I expect players like Horn Francis could be really interesting for this one. But anyway, that's a tangent, so I'll get on with it. So now we come up to the win versus loss average here. So Cameron again near the top. That's a good sign. That could be somewhat of a worry, I guess, at first glance, as you know, he seems to score better in losses, almost 20 points better. And I expect Collingwood are going to win a lot more games this year. But it's not a deal breaker or anything. His post-buy scoring when Collingwood were losing was great. Even with Cox in the team, though. So it's not a huge issue at all. I think he's just going to do what he's going to do. Might had some mic issues there, actually. Apologies for that if there was. Anyway, moving on. Flynn, so again in 23, this is a good sign for him that he scores, 15 points better in losses. West Coast aren't likely to win a heap of games, so. But again, for him, the issue is not any of that. He's pretty much fully dependent on whether he's fit and what they do with Williams. I don't think Meek, Nankervis, English or Witts here are any issues there. They're all pretty close to even whether they win or lose. Marshall is going to need he's going to need St Kilda to have a better season, especially if he's forward. But again, he's not relevant, and if he's not the first ruck, at least until he gets DPP, so there's not much to say about him here. I think North should win more games this year, so that's a great sign for anyone locking in Cherry. There's 13 points on the upside there. Although, admittedly, that is only a small sample size, as North only won 3 games. So, that's what, 20 games versus 3, or whatever it is. Looks like Briggs could find it hard if the Giants slide a little, even though he's not largely relevant, I think. But there is a chance that the Giants do slide. If you go through their list, they've lost quite a few, like best 22, or at least fringe players as well. So they're going to find it hard, I think. A few injuries, and their depth is really going to be tested. Sean Darcy, so people expect Fremantle to win and contend for a flag. I think they'll certainly be better than they were last year. So this would suggest that that's going to help him big time. But like some of the others, his body is just the major concern. Not really Fremantle's results. We know he's going to score right no matter what, as long as he's fit. But this is a good sign, especially for those who are banking on Freo to be a contender. Gawn I find absolutely wild. So his loss average here is nearly 20 points in the red, but he's still putting out basically 115 points in losses. Like, this guy's just on some other planet, on another level. He could improve, honestly. If I know he's another year older, but his average could actually improve if Melbourne return to finals, just based on this. And there's some people that think Melbourne are going to bounce back. I don't know where they're going to be, probably mid-table, if I had to guess, but, you know, it's better than last year. So is it crazy to say that Gawn actually could improve? I don't know. Grundy should still score okay with Sydney being contenders based on this, but his age and that regression is the real worry. He's definitely past his prime, so not too relevant. Bit of a worry to see TDK at the bottom here again. I think Carlton could go either way this year. They could easily pick up or drop off. We're pretty much picking him, though, if you are, based off that crazy 5-game run in the middle of 2024. So, you know, Carlton are a far better team when he's the solo ruck, I think. And the evidence there is that they won 4 out of the 5 games in that 5-game run where he scored like crazy. So I think it's more of a case of when he's solo ruck, they win. When he's not, they probably are more likely to lose. So again, it's probably a little more skewed in his defense, but yeah, it's not great to see him at the bottom of the first 2 tables. Again, very high risk, high reward type stuff there. So now to the last table. We have pre-buy versus post-buy. Now what this does is we can try and see what changes were made and what caused these fluctuations in the scoring from the first half to the second half of the year. The post-buy is really important because that's the more recent history. So I think it's, you know, holds a little bit more weight. But yeah, it can be interesting once you get to the bottom of why these fluctuations happen. We can kind of apply them, hopefully, to 2025 and the scenarios that we think might play out. Obviously, AFL, though, is very bloody hard to predict. So yeah, TDK is actually at the top this time. So we all know he went pretty crazy on that post-buy. So he only played 5 games post-buy. But that 178 that he scored against his brother was the first game after the bye. So there's not a hell of a lot to go on, to be honest, with those kind of numbers. But again, it's that kind of scoring. That's the reason why we're looking at him now. So with him, it's down to Pitt and Net. So they played 6 games together pre-buy and 2 post-buy, and basically there's your result. So yeah, that's pretty much the case with him. Cherry, I wasn't really able to find a reason why he had such a better second half of the year. He seemed to just get better as the season went on naturally. I think he's still pretty young for a ruck, and he would have gained confidence and experience in the role. So yeah, I see him as a pretty safe bet, even at his price. Cameron up near the top again, so I think he's been top 3 in every table. His pre-buy was dragged down with an uncharacteristic 18 against McInerney, who again is a restrictive beast. So that was in a full game too. Like, he didn't get subbed or anything, no low time on ground, nothing like that. But in that game, Cox actually got more CBAs than Cameron, which was pretty odd. But as we see here, post-buy, once Cox was mostly forward or not even playing in the team, Cameron just went nuts. So I expect Collingwood will continue that way. So again, Cameron's looking really good here. Not too sure what happened with Briggs. Was he playing injured in the start of the year? I'm not sure. Any Giants supporters, tell me in the comments, or anyone that knows. This would be interesting. I don't really have the time to go the deep dive on Kieran Briggs because he's not that relevant. I'm not really looking at picking him. But yeah, someone let me know. I think Marshall's slower start there to the season. I think he had a knee issue from memory. Like, I owned him and I traded him out not long after that because he didn't look right. And then the knee issue, I think it was at the end of a game. It really scared me. So yeah, he had to go, but I do remember it. The only other thing I can think of with him is that he scored 13 goals post-bye as opposed to 2 goals pre-bye. Obviously, goals are great for scoring points. So, but yeah, apart from that, I don't honestly know. So another one to tell me in the comments if you do know or you have a theory. Nank, Meek, Witts, Darcy, and Grundy here. Not really statistically relevant, I would say. There's nothing too much to read about. I think English here with the drop-off, he probably ran out of steam because he had a pretty interrupted preseason in 2024. He didn't seem to be getting to as many contests, and as I said before, given that he's not your typical ruck, he plays more like that extra mid or just that around the ground player. He's almost entirely dependent on that ability. So when he couldn't do it properly, his scoring dropped off. So that one's pretty straightforward, I think. Obviously, with all of these, if you have an opposing theory, please let me know because, I have mine, but then by no means gospel or anything like that. So Gawn, Melbourne had a shitty second half of the year. We all know that. It would have been harder for him, I think, with Petrarca out of the team after he nearly got killed. And he would have just had an underdone Oliver to hit to, and Oliver was pretty underwhelming by his standards. So that would have definitely made it harder on Gawn. But again, he's dropped, 15.5 points here in the second half of the year. And that 114.5 is still a pretty nice average, I think. Maybe I'm biased because I'd say Gawn's my favourite player outside of the Crom. But, I don't know, you be the judge. He's a freak. I haven't included Flynn in this one because he didn't play in 2024 at all, and he didn't play any post-bye games in 2023. So, it's pretty easy. So now we'll have a look at the snapshot of all three together. Now this here, I think, if you put the three side by side, you can kind of see who's towards the top and who's not. See, who's consistently doing well in these. So Cameron for me is the standout or the interesting one because, he kind of flies under the radar, but he's top 3 here in the green for all categories. So he's the only player that is, as far as I can see. I think he's good for a safe 110 average. And to be honest, after last year's bullshit with the Rucks, or at least in my experience, I kind of find that really appealing. Obviously dependent on Cox staying forward or out of the team completely. But yeah, I don't know. There's something about Cameron. I have a gut feel, and I've had it from early on. I have done teams with him in it, but nothing I've settled on yet. But it totally could happen. Cherry, Gawn, I think they're most likely to be Ruck 1 and 2 though. Everything here pretty much points to it. I mean, Gawn's still a beast, so he can lose a bit off his average, as we can see here, for the various reasons shown, and he's still got that good average. So if you start him at his price, obviously you'd lose money at that worst case scenario, but even if he went at that post-bye 114 average, and if he went at that, it's not the end of the world, I think. Like, if his body stays good, I think he's still going to be around the mark no matter what. You can't really go wrong unless he gets injured. So I can't see him dropping off a cliff form-wise or anything like that. Like, in my opinion, he's the greatest ruckman of this century. And I'm old enough to have seen Dean Cox's whole career, and I have gone just ahead. So, maybe controversial, but yeah, maybe let me know in the comments what you think on that call. So anyway, Tom De Koning, clearly, as I said before, massive risk, massive reward. You can see here, he's at the bottom for 2 of these. I know they're a little bit skewed, but it's not really what you want to see. There's just red flags ahoy. But to be honest, I still can't rule him out. He's still in my team, and it's because of that scoring in the middle of the year there was just too sweet to totally ignore. So, he'll remain for a little while longer, at least. Marshall's effectively ruled out if he's playing forward, as I mentioned earlier, until he gets DPP, I would say. Of course, that's if that happens with Boyd. English, So I mentioned about his fitness and that, and how it probably trailed off in the second half of the year. I think the biggest question with him, it's not like CBAs or wins and losses and things like that. It's purely, I think, the fitness thing. So at his price, he actually could be quite valuable. He's probably the biggest watch for me now. I will say though that he's not ideal, I think, for people who are set on Cherry or TDK in their first two rucks, as they share the buy. So if you went English, Cherry, TDK, because I have seen it, some people are running a 3 primo ruck setup with the flex, you would lose all 3 of them on that round because they've all got the same buy. So you can't really do it. I don't even think you can probably have 2 of them together. Depends on your setup, I guess. There's some pretty crazy stuff out there. But yeah, you got to be really cautious with the buys here, and it's worth looking at which ruckmen do share the buys. The rest on here I'm not really interested in as picks. To be honest, Nank could be a pod, but his durability worries me. He's another year older. Yeah, not seriously looking at him, but you know, I would happily hear reasons for why people want to pick him, or even Meek, I guess. So I guess, yeah, that's about it. Make your own conclusions from this data as always, and you know, it should go hand in hand with other videos and stuff. Is the bigger this, you know, the more categories that you use to try and make your final decision, I think, is the best way to go about it. AFL is just too crazy. You can't just take one stat line in isolation. So let me know in the comments what you think of this, and if you think I missed anything. If you have different opinions and stuff, yeah, I want to hear all about it. So thanks again for everyone's support in doing these, and I'll catch you tomorrow for the next video.